have to say, first of all, it's 1.5 because he's really the main speaker. I know all my girlfriends are jealous that I'm seeing you tonight because they all think that you hung the moon and part of the Red Sea, which arguably you might have. I don't know anyone. You know, thank you, Mike, for inviting me, and I really do appreciate being here. You know, I was talking when I came in about what's going on in the Middle East, and when I see what's going on in the Middle East and I see what's going on in this country, I realize that now more than ever we need to use our voice. And we need to use our voice to say, and not I told you so, because clearly, you know, when we were making these deals with Iran, there were those that predicted that this would happen. The reason why I say that is because not only is it happening at the federal level, it's happening at the local level. How many of you know what the Martin versus Boise decision was? I know you do, Mark. God bless you, Mark. It has to do with the homeless issue. First of all, let me back up. When I poll first campaign, and Bob, I think you also were aware of this, homelessness and public safety were the two top issues. Didn't matter what party you're from, those were the issues on people's mind. When I ran for re-election, guess what the top two were again? Public safety and homelessness. And during that period, I decided to support a group that wanted to challenge the Boise decision, which basically says that in order for us to enforce encampments and anti-camping in our parks, we had to guarantee beds for every single person that's on the street. For LA County, that would be approximately 77,000 beds, all right? When I brought that motion in, you would have thought that I had 666 on my forehead. I had people accuse me of wanting to criminalize the homeless. I'm cruel, inhumane, and imagine my surprise when I turned on the TV last week and I see London Breathe in San Francisco and Mayor Gavin Newsom saying we need to overturn Boise because that is a problem and that is what is causing us to not be able to address what's going on our streets. So what I tell people is I need 4 more years to make predictions now that I can get done in 4 years, because the reality is some of the decisions being made by Gascon we may not see immediately, but make no mistake, it is going to catch up with us. We're seeing with smash and grabs. I talk to the sheriff deputies day in and day out who tell me they get spit on, and gang members will laugh and say, I'll be out before you even file your paperwork. And then when the paperwork gets filed, guess what happens to it? It gets thrown out. And I make no apologies for supporting law enforcement. Always have, always will. Always. And I never thought I'd live in a world where I have to defend the fact that I'm defending law enforcement. For all you accountants, and don't take this the wrong way, but there are bad accountants, there are bad lawyers, there are bad politicians, there are bad people that have taken the oath to be in law enforcement. But you don't condemn the entire industry. You weed out the bad ones. And as someone who had to go up to Palmdale and look in the eyes of a mother and father and a fiance who are devastated by the execution of their son and their fiancé, Ryan Klickenbrummer. I don't know how anyone with any conscience cannot say that these people are heroes who put on their uniforms each and every day to protect us. I really wonder if common sense has left the room. People, when I get interviewed, you know, whether it be for endorsements or all, they say, you're the only one with common sense. And I just sit and think to myself, the sky is not purple, all right? You can tell me you think it is, but the common sense will tell me what I know. People nowadays don't think with common sense. They're spoon-fed what they want to believe. And I would argue that is why it's important to get the word out. Whether you're Republican, independent, it doesn't matter. It's important for us to recognize. And I look to Barbara, you know, I mean, history, if you look back at where we've been and where we're going, I'm concerned about the trajectory we're on right now. And I will continue to be the common sense voice on the board. And people ask me, how does it feel when you're on a 4-to-1 vote? And I say I sleep really well. And that is the honest to God truth. I don't have a problem sleeping anyway, but I really sleep well. In part because I vote my conscience, and while this is a nonpartisan office, I vote nonpartisan, but understand this. My base, my father worked for Ronald Reagan. I grew up in a house that taught me the foundation of what the Republican Party is, and I use that foundation, and I have to compromise sometimes, and believe me, sometimes I have to plug my nose and vote for something. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure I do right for not only my constituents, but for LA County. And Bob, believe me, you should say thank you to me, because it's kicking my ass. But all kidding aside, I'm not overly confident. Incumbent means nothing. Incumbent is just a word. Mike, when you worked for Sparm, if you were an incumbent, it was basically free ride election. Those days are gone. And in part it's because of term limits, so you've got people looking to land in their next position. It's not about the position, it's about using this profession as a public servant as your career. And I think it's unfortunate, and I believe that unless we really do rise up and use our voice, and I say that because there's no excuse. You don't have to come down to the board meetings anymore. You can call in. And the vocal minority are calling in and showing up. And intimidating. They came to my house and wanted to cancel the rent. And I live in a community where every single person that owns a home there worked their tail off to get it. And I thought my neighbors were going to come out and strangle them all. But that's the world we live in. Intimidation. And by the way, Gary, your son showed up that day, and his son, thank you, his son is an LASD deputy, works out of Temple Station, and is an amazing young man. And he rolled up in my house today with the protesters. And mind you, I did not call for you all, for the law enforcement. One of my colleagues, who's very much about deep, when they showed up at her house, and you can't figure out who it is because we're all women, she wanted law enforcement parked in front of the house. The irony is not lost on me. The irony is not lost on me. Although I love having them there. I love law enforcement, so you all can park in front of my house anytime you want. But we live in different times, and I will not change who I am to accommodate this position, so I'm going to run like I'm in last place, like I do every single time. And I am confident. The last time I ran, they threw a lot of things at me. They being one individual who, they don't fact check, by the way, either. When they say something bad, you don't fact check, but I don't engage, because if I engage, it gives them a platform, and so I don't engage. And this time it's going to be the same thing. I've got an incumbent out of Sacramento who's turned out, who's looking for his next position, in my opinion, and so now my job is to beat him and to serve this last term, and then do what we don't do well in the Republican Party, Mike. And you know what that is? Find someone to run that can win. And we don't do that well. And this has been a problem for a long time. And it is something that I think as a party needs to be looked at. And that is looking, you know, maybe with all respect this young man, were you in kindergarten when she got elected? Okay, we need to start. Not kindergarten. Close. But in high school. And we need to start telling them that water and whiskey, water boards are very powerful, make no mistake. School boards, thanks to COVID, school boards are now recognized as an important part of what we do in terms of education. That's what we need to start growing, and we need to let them know that their aspirations, and the young people today want to start here and then go right up here right away. It's a natural progression up. So that's my commitment. I think that's been the frustration I've had, is how do we do that? Who do I work with to make it happen? Because 4 years goes by very quickly. I plan on winning in March, but 4 years goes by very quickly, and I want to make sure whoever takes a seat has the same heart for public service that I do. And I will say this publicly, and I've said it to you, Bob, but I have to say that the first election I ran with Bob, And there is no one that I think would have been better, had I not won, than him. Because you do have the heart of a public servant. And that's the kind of candidates we need to run for these type of offices. So with that, now we're going to hear John tear me apart. But anyway, I really appreciate being here. And I thank you all for your service. Maggie, thank you for your service. You come to everything, and you're like the ever-ready battery bunny that keeps going. But thank you for everything you do, and thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you.